Sorry, so just to recap, because this is our final talk of the day, final talk of the weekend. So we just want to review a little bit. Again, what's the theme of the weekend for us, real quick? Who's your daddy? Okay, and what do we? And the sub theme there, we said that it's who's your daddy, and what do we want to do? The family business. Going over the family business. What did we learn so far? Shh. That was good. Okay. So in the first talk, we talked about the basics, how this is a blueprint, how this is going to basically shape the way we pray. And that we're not learning, right? We're not learning a prayer, but we are learning to pray, right? That's the big distinction. We're learning to pray, not learning a prayer. And in the second talk, we started getting into what it means to be bringing God's kingdom, right? For God's name is holy, and we want to bring His kingdom where we are. One thing, so then segue down into talk right now. One of the things we were talking about in the workshop, we're saying from talk 2, we're saying, wow, God is so holy, God is so big, God is so amazing. Sometimes you can feel around Him like a celebrity, like we were saying here, like you can get like, you know, if you even think of the idea of meeting a celebrity, whatever celebrity you love is, right? Like they happen to be in Calgary shooting a movie or something. Would it be hard for you to approach them, to talk to them, to have a conversation? Right? Like you worry about maybe, like you say something dumb, they might think you're weird, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes when we see how holy God is, we can get that feeling about Him too. That's why, beginning this talk, we want to see, well, seeing the holiness of God, seeing that it made us repent, what do we want to get into in terms of how we deal with that, how we react to that, right? So we said so far in the words of our Father prayer, we talked about our Father who art in heaven. We talked about hallowed be thy name. We talked about, what was after that? What's after hallowed be thy name? Thy kingdom come. We talked about that. Will be done, basically in that. Then, earth is in heaven. The daily bread, that daily fuel that we talked about, which is the Eucharist. Then,
and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
So we're going to talk about that right now. Talk about this idea. You know, in other religions, it's very different how you get God's forgiveness. This is actually one of the trouble things, like the difficult things sometimes, or difficult / amazing things about when someone comes to Christianity, when they understand how we view God's forgiveness. And sometimes, just to be honest with you, because we existed in a country where there was another faith that has a different way of getting God's forgiveness, sometimes that gets a little mixed up. I'm talking about back in Egypt. Because it's very different how we understand getting God's forgiveness versus any other faith of getting God's forgiveness. So that's what we want to talk about today. I want to share with you a quick story about the verse. We're going to get into a passage from Luke 7, but I want to tell you where this passage was when we last handed it out. So, with getting God's forgiveness, my man, sorry, can you just sit up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. We're doing one of those things. One of the great things about God's forgiveness is that it's limitless, but not just for us, but for everybody else. Let's open together, actually, Luke 7, if you have it. Verse 36 to 43. 36. Luke 7. 36 to 43. Yeah, if you could. It's a little story that Jesus is going to give here that happened there. Go ahead.
When the Pharisees asked him to visit them, he went to the Pharisees' house and sat down to eat. And behold, a woman in the city was a sinner, and she knew that Jesus sat at the table in the Pharisees' house, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil, and stood at his feet behind him weeping. And she began to wash his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head. And she kissed his feet and anointed them with her oil. And when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, "This man, if he were a prophet, would know that what manner of woman this is touching her, for she is a sinner." And Jesus answered and said to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." So he said, "Teacher, say it." There was a certain creditor who had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And when they had nothing which to repay, he forgave both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love me more? Simon answered and said, I suppose when you forgave me. He said to him, you are rightly judged.
Thank you. We'll stop. Let me ask you a question. Has there ever been a time in your life when you did something so bad or so dumb, and you just, instead of getting what you deserve, whatever it is, the retribution that you get, the punishment that you get, the whatever that you get, you got forgiven for it? I'll give you an example. Has it been? You definitely have it.
Okay,
I'm just kidding.
well, when I was 2, I dropped my parents' cell phone in the balcony.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they didn't throw you off the balcony with it, so that's a surprise.
That's the record.
They were up? Oh, they were, I'm saying when they came back, you weren't projectile off the balcony. That's what I would have done if I would not. Just kidding, that's what I have to do now. That's a good point, actually. We've all done some funny things definitely when we were little. For me, the most recent thing, I don't know how speeding tickets are in Canada, but in America, like in New York especially, the cops are really tough on that stuff. And I was speeding one time. Well, I wasn't really speeding, I was just going a little fast, just a little bit. I was just on my way to a talk, I was kind of late. So I got this to a lecture.
No, you just want to talk about.
Yeah, I was the one talking about it. And so I got this ticket, right? And the ticket, the way it works for us in New York, you'll have to pay a gigantic fine, and you'll have points on your license where you got to pay more money forever. It's awful. That's how it is here. Okay, so it stinks. It's a horrible system, and you feel like the system will punish you for a very long time for that speeding ticket. I showed up to court to fight it, try to flip it off. Yo, my bad. The way what happened was, my mom was sick. My uncle was, I had stories trying to fix things. No, I wasn't gonna say that stuff. I was just gonna try to beg for mercy. And then well, gives them a little bit. Every once in a while, there's a legend. Story happens that if the police officer doesn't show up to your court date, your ticket is forgiven by the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. So I walk into the court date, I'm prepared, I'm maybe what should I cry? Maybe I'll cry. Please, no. I'm getting in character, and then the judge just comes up to me, and I was she's like, you're good. Officer's not here, you are forgiven. Oh my soul. I put it in this XR, it's gonna be it's a story, right? Because I already couldn't afford to pay the city, this was already mad money. And then that feeling, I was just this must be a part of what getting God's forgiveness must feel like. Because I did nothing. I broke the law. I was well within my limits to be paying hundreds of dollars. And then for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I was forgiven of my debt. Jesus in this story gives this idea of sometimes we approach God In this story here, there was a lady that racked up a lot of tickets. And there was some dude who was not racking up a lot of tickets. And Jesus turned around and forgave her all her tickets. He said, you got speeding, you got red lights, you got failure to yield, and you're good. The lady was just mind blown. She was washing her feet with tears and alabaster flask and doing all this stuff. And the other guy, because he's I'm not that forgiving. So he's sitting there looking at Jesus what are you talking about? Looking at him at the tip of his that, right? And Jesus explained to him a principle that we need to understand when we're in the church, and we need to internalize and share it with other people. Is that if you're forgiven a lot, you love a lot. I don't know if you've experienced it even with people that you deal with. So recently, I did something that was so dumb that one of my friends, he called me and he was dude, this was the dumbest thing I ever experienced with another human being. You need to get checked out. I'm not I have issues, right? But he forgave me. And he forgave me something that was so dumb, that was so stupid I should have done, that I was embarrassed. And I was man, what can I do to repay? I don't get chocolate, I don't know, get him an iPad, or something, right? I gotta do something because I felt so forgiven. For us in the church, sometimes we feel in these two stories, okay, for me to get really forgiven, do I gotta start doing cocaine or something? Do I gotta do I gotta start selling dope? You don't have to. We've already, congratulations to all of us, we've racked up enough tickets throughout our lifetime that right now we can be forgiven a lot. And in the Orthodox Church, like the reason why we have this like ongoing whole thing of repentance and confession is for us to continue go to God and like offload and be like, whew, man, I can't believe you let me off that many tickets this time. And to be kind of like revived by that. And Jesus explains there's a direct relationship between how much you are experiencing the love of God and how much you're experiencing His forgiveness. Today, do you feel like you're forgiven much? Or do you feel like you're forgiven a little bit? Or do you feel like you're forgiven nothing? Sometimes we feel like we're not forgiven much because we're not asking God for forgiveness. That's why in this prayer Jesus outlines and says, ask God, forgive us our sins. When church fathers teach us, you know when forgiveness begins to happen? Before you even utter the words, before you're even done saying forgive us, God is already beginning to forgive. Because there's no one more willing to forgive you sins than God. Like the judge that I went to, the court judge, it was like hurting her. She was like, she did not want to do it. Like she just wanted to put me in prison if I could for that, for that speeding violation. But God, He's just like waiting. He's like, I just want to forgive you. I just want to get this thing out of the way. I don't really care about sin. I want to get sin out of the way. So what He wants to do is be able to forgive us much, so we can love much. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
What was the dumbest thing that you did?
So I ain't gonna tell you. My father confession. I said I'm gonna So I'll reveal to you my sins later on. There are plenty of them, but this wasn't even the dumbest. This was like top 5. I've done dumb things on a daily basis. One of which is losing my bag on the way here. That was pretty dumb, but that wasn't my fault. Just clarify. So that's the idea. Is being like forgiven much. So in this story, these two people, we want to know. Or what we have to understand is that this lady who was a sinner racked up a lot of tickets, and the Pharisee guy racked up a lot of tickets too. But Jesus was trying to explain to him, he's like, buddy, she knows she sinned a lot and she's forgiven much. You just don't know that you sinned a lot, but you could be forgiven much too. I want to share with you a couple of stories, a couple of experiences. I've seen people from both sides of this fence. This story we printed on a flyer and put it in the back of a flyer with a picture of Christ, like an icon of Him with this woman, and we gave it to women that we were sharing Christ with in Amsterdam. You guys know Amsterdam?
Yeah.
That's like far from here. It's like a spiritual pilgrimage place where people go to pray. Like no one was like, oh, that sounds totally believable. New York people always lie to you. So no, it's not a nice place. It's a sinful place, right? There are a lot of women in this position in that city. That's why our team went there. And that's why we're giving them these flyers. These flyers had that story, and they had local churches around, so they can get access to help. Okay, there's people walking. It's okay, guys. Oh my God, they're carrying up that. One of the ladies we gave this flyer to, and we would say to her, hey, how much is the time worth here for your time? She'd say whatever. And then we'd ask her, have you ever thought about the fact that you're worth more than that to Jesus? And the lady was like, what? No, I never thought about that. That's crazy, right? In the course of the conversation, when she began to cry because it was the first time she'd ever heard about the limitless forgiveness of God, the fact that God can forgive much. Like, for some reason, she was always taught that God's forgiveness had a limit. Like, if you did something bad, God will forgive you. If this is something really, really bad, maybe. If this is something really, really, really bad, there's no more forgiveness for that. So we shared with her the fact that God's forgiveness is limitless, and that touched her, that made her cry, made her weep. She asked for a Bible, we gave her a Bible, and then when we walked away, actually, a funny thing that happened in the middle, after we gave her a Bible, it was me and another guy that's a local guy from Amsterdam. She was like, hey, wait a minute. This was, by the way, like in the area where this happened. I don't want to give details just for whatever. It's a bad area. She turned to my friend, she's like, hey, don't you come here like all the time? I was like, Opa. Tell me something like that. Maybe I'll prepare these things beforehand. And she's like, no, I mean, don't you come here? Aren't you from the church that gives us roses and tries to ask us, or share with us love of God? I was like, woo! It's a close call there. My friend was like, obviously turned like purple, not even red. He was like fluorescent rainbow. Because she thought he was like a customer. Like, where we can do bad things with people. You know. So, but he was not. Sorry, I know this might be. I'm sharing with you anyway. I mean, hopefully it's not too bad. I won't get fired. The point is, so we give her. You gonna be alright?
I got tears.
She's here. Okay.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
You sound like Fox Black.
You sound
Exactly like.
We family, baby. That's my little cousin. Go ahead now. So she's really. She's so dramatic. That's like me too. I would be dramatic like that too. Hey, well, that's my mom. So anyway, right? So listen, that was the funny part. The spiritual part coming, I promise. That was the funny part. That's good. She's laughing at the funny part. So after that whole thing happened, and we gave her a Bible and we walked away, we're like, you know what? Let's go. Let's just go. Hold on. We forgot to give her something else, right? Shh. Fee lecture. Sorry. It's okay. So we turn, we go walk, actually we go take a couple steps and then come back, and then we see like outside of her window, like a bunch of dudes standing there and like pointing and like laughing at her. We're like, what's going on? What are these guys doing, right? And then we see her, we get a little closer, and they're like calling her names and stuff like that. We're like, this is really rude. She's sitting there with her Bible inside like her area, openly reading her Bible in this place of darkness, in this place where God's name is not hallowed, in this place where God's kingdom is not present. And we thought, my goodness, that is incredibly powerful. She's sitting there, she doesn't care about people watching her, she doesn't care that someone is pointing at her, calling her names, any of that stuff. She was just blown away by the fact that God can forgive much. Like mad, a lot of much, all there is. And that hit her. She needed somebody to be able to just share with her that truth. Another time where I saw this kind of being hit, because over here, earlier in the service, we were discussing certain barriers that people have. One of those barriers sometimes is like same gender attraction. You guys are familiar with that concept, like homosexuality and that kind of thing. One time we were in Miami. In Miami, there's an area, just like there is now in almost every major metropolitan city, where there's a lot of people who have the same kind of attraction, same gender attraction. I don't know if that's the same in Calgary, if there's an area like that here. Maybe not. But in a lot of major cities, there would be just areas where it's concentrated. A lot of people who have this same gender attraction. Anyway, we talked to one guy, and our team went there for that specific reason, to reach out to these folks, to be able to show them, hey, God has limitless forgiveness offered. One guy talked to him and said, hey man, you know, got his background as like a 19-year-old kid. And he was like, you know, I used to be kind of in the church, but then I realized that I have no place in there because God hates me. I was like, oh no, dude, come on now. We're talking about God hates you, he doesn't hate you. You know, God's like your father, right? I'm like, I'm talking. God is Abba Father. He's like, can you imagine? I was like, can you imagine your father hating you? He's like, yeah, my father hates me. This didn't work out quite as well as I mean, not father, I'm sorry, I'll take it back. I meant like a spiritual father, right? Like spiritual. Like, can you imagine like your priest hating you? Your priest wouldn't hate you. Your priest would never say that to you. Set myself up for that one too. He was like, actually, his pastor, whatever church he was, you know, my pastor told me straight up, God hates you, and so do I, and you have no place here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
It's eloquent. God bless that guy. So I'm sitting there, me and the team were all like face palm, kind of like, what do we do? So we started just telling them, like, listen, man, like, what if we told you something a little bit different? What if we told you that, and this is very simple. You guys all knew this when you were 4. What if we told you that God actually, he doesn't hate you because of the mistakes that you've made or the lifestyle choices you've made, but that God actually really loves you and that he's offering you like forgiveness that's infinite. You know what he said? I'll never forget what he said, even though this was a while ago. He said, you know, man, if I really knew that, if I really experienced that, I would like live to please him like a father. And I think that would, and I quote, I think that would change my whole life. He said to me, this 19-year-old kid on the beach. We're like, wow, that would change your whole life? He's like, yeah. I've never heard that before, he said. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't live in like Zimbabwe. You live in America. How did you not hear that before? He's like, all I've heard my whole life is the exact opposite of that message. And I thought, actually, he even told me this was what really got me, really like, oh. He was like, that's in the Bible that God hates me. I was like, you're all good. What Bible? You know? course, God, like, weeps over all our sin. But God loves us with an infinite love, man. He's like, I never heard that before. That made me say, then the message of God's limitless love, and if he doesn't know it, he's a 19-year-old. Let's say fast, rewind a couple of years, people that you know around you. You think people that you know all know this? I can promise you they do not. I've been in different cities, let's say in Canada, just to keep it culturally relevant. Toronto and Vancouver. I've experienced this in both areas. Where I've asked people who grew up in some Christian faith, hey, tell me, we're just chatting, just talking. Tell me a little bit about, like, I'm sure you've heard this before. Like, who's Jesus? Like, what's like salvation? Like, how do you go to heaven? Anything you know about Jesus. I saw a movie one time when I was like, the book, it's a good book. Nothing, right? A lot of people that you know who are your age, and by the way, the most effective people on the planet to speak to people your age about Jesus are, who do you think? Me? It's you. You're in grade 8, you're in grade 9, you're in grade 10. Someone will much more likely listen to you when you share with them, because you're not going to be doing this. You're not going to hold an iPad and give them your little oration about Jesus. You can tell me, I don't know much about anything. I know you need Jesus, that's why. So do I. I just know that whatever, like when I'm down, I pray, and I feel like God is my friend. If that's how you feel, whatever it is that you feel. I feel like God is like whatever to me. Who God is to you, when you share that with someone around you, that blows their mind. More than a televangelist, more than a priest, more than a servant, more than an anything. The people around you, like, I know you may think this is just another retreat. You may just think this is another camp thingy and I come and whatever. The only reason, like, as a side note, I don't do a lot of these things anymore. I don't do retreats a lot. I try to say no to some things because I have more commitments back home. One of the reasons I'm here is I feel like God wanted me to share with you individually here is that God has placed you where you are to be able to share this with somebody in your life. There's someone right now that you know who you need to be having this conversation with about the limitless forgiveness of God that you are experiencing. As just hey, but I'm just a kid. Yeah. I'm just a whatever age. Yeah. And that's going to change the course of someone's life. I know people in my life who have gone, let me give you actually an example. I know two dudes that I met. One guy named Matt, one guy named Jose. Matt, we'll start with the bad first and then we'll go to good. Jose, Christian guy, right? Because of influences early on in his life, high school time, a little bit into early college, Jose is now Imam Jose. He is a sheikh of a mega mosque in Virginia. A sheikh is a religious person. He's Muslim, yeah, he's Muslim. But he's not just Muslim, he's a sheikh. And he's a youth, he's a religious leader. What I'm saying is, I don't know if you guys don't have Muslims in Canada, so he's an imam or sheikh. He's an imam. Imam meaning he's a spiritual leader of a mosque, and I say mega mosque because it is one of the biggest mosques in the country for us. And we went there, this is a whole different side story. It's kind of funny, I can tell you later if you wanted to, but we went to this mosque to share Christ with the people in the mosque. And we had a chance to...
Inside, like you walked in?
Yeah.
You walked in and you like, guys, my bad.
We made it out, so that's a different story. I don't want to tell you.
Are you sure you made it out?
I could tell you if you want.
Wait, did we get it out? He got left in. You left him in.
Okay, so I'll tell you in a second. But I'll tell you the...
Let's finish
the actual story first.
The point why I'm telling you about Jose is I'll tell you one thing about Matt too. Jose, we sat with him, this is in the middle of a mosque, and he shared with us his background. We sat for about 2 hours discussing faith, salvation, his misconceptions about Christianity, and how they developed, by the way. Because, I grew up Christian, but the people in high school that I saw were Christians, never really told me anything about Christianity. Everything was so surface level. But the Muslim people around me, in my high school, in my college, really shared with me the true faith of Islam. Yes, yes I am. So that's Imam Jose. Mega Mosque, Virginia. In comes Matt. Matt is someone I met in a different place. Matt is like a tall white guy who, again, like grew up not very religious, didn't really know anything about like didn't take God seriously at all, whatever. Matt, through influences around his life, Coptic people in his school who said to him, "Hey Matt," and they I know the people that were around him. None of them are like they don't have icons. They're not in a synaxarium. Like they're just regular people. And they were just like, "Yo, dude, man, we got Bible study. You want to come check it out? If you want, whatever. If not, we're gonna go eat later, which we always do. If you want to come eat." And Matt just started hanging out with these Coptic people. Now, Matt, fast forward a couple years, his name is Father Daniel St. Moses. He's a Coptic Orthodox monk in Texas Monastery. This is in America. Both of these stories happen in America. Matt grew up in Florida. Jose, did you meet him?
Yeah.
He's the man, right? Buddha Daniel. He's a Coptic monk. He's a tall, white, redhead. He told me he looks like a highlighter. Like he kind of does. He looks funny, right? He learned Arabic, likes food. Like he's Coptic. The difference is just night and day, and the difference is people around them in their junior high school, in their high school, in their college, and how they impact them. So that's up to you. You want to be involved in a Matt story or a Jose story? Because every day, like it or not, like C.S. Lewis says this, says, whether you choose to believe it or not, every day you are becoming a son of heaven or a son of hell. We want to believe, we want to invent a different option where we're just chilling. There's no chilling. We're either making Jose's or we're making Abuna Daniels. You're either making Imam Jose or you're making Abuna Daniel every day, and that's your choice. That's the choice that we have, and a responsibility and a grace that we have. Like how amazing is that we get to be, like now what Abuna Daniel shared with me, he's like, yeah man, and this kid so-and-so, and this kid so-and-so, he's like, please when you go back like to the world, thank that dude for me. Shoot him a text and say like how he impacted my life, and he's part of the reason why I'm here. Don't you want someone to say that about you? How some lady is a Coptic monk, Coptic nun, maybe.
That's a nun.
Or whatever it is, but just like, honestly though, like isn't that something that we desire? To be a part of someone's story like that, where someone later on will say, you know what? Like that's always my dream, like later on. That if someone can say, Mina he's not very bright, he's funny looking, he loses stuff, but he really helped me in my journey. Like a part of the reason why I am where I am spiritually is because of him. By the grace of God using him. Same for you guys. That's the limitless forgiveness of God. Does that make sense? And I remind me to share with you the story of the mosque thing later. It's great.
It's later. It's later.
It's later, okay. So it's just because of time. I just felt bad. We'll get through the other principles quickly. So the mosque thing is still relevant because what? The fly, it was just chilling on my face.
No, it came in and I didn't hit your face.
I have delayed reflexes too. Why you always gotta judge me for it? I feel mad.
I got it too, y'all. I got it too.
That's the family. So the mosque thing, we just went, basically, to make a long story short, is because our team wanted to be like, okay, again, how can we, the MO of the team that we did for 2 years was how do we reach people who have a barrier to reach Christ? So that's why it wasn't the first time we went to a Muslim area. We went to some areas in New York that are just Arabic. And it's just hijab store, mosque, like there's nothing, like that's all it is. That's it. So when we went to this mosque though, which I would not recommend that you do without asking your father confession, this is just a disclaimer, just in case you want to do that. Just so you don't sue me or anything. So our team, we brought flyers, right? We had these flyers that were written in Arabic about Christ like being the door. And as we went, so we wanted to see if we can speak with either people there. And as we were walking on the way, like in the parking lot and stuff, we decided, let's just go inside. So we go inside, and then we say, once we're inside, we took off our shoes, we're chilling, we're hanging out. We're like, you know what? Well, maybe God is asking us not just to speak to individuals, but let's try to go to the top. Because we decided like on a sermon kind of, and it was like, it was pretty cool. So we said, let's just speak to the imam, because he was like a young guy, he was that guy, Jose. So one of our guys was like, you know what, but maybe we look like suspicious with all these flyers. So I'm gonna go and take him back to the car. And this guy was kind of pissed anyway, he didn't want to be there, because he was like, this is a really dumb idea. Wow, he said that, it's a great idea. So as he was leaving, so he dips, right? And then the imam goes, hey, he's making an announcement, like, you know, announcement time at the church. He says, if anyone wants to go for like a hijrah, like to go to like Mecca, there's gonna be a dude outside with flyers. And our guy happens to be particularly Middle Eastern looking with a serious Arab beard. At the time, he just thought it was cool. Maybe he was going camouflage, I don't know what he was doing. But he's standing there at the door of the mosque, he's trying to just get out. And then he's like, why is everybody near me? What's going on? He thought he was going to be attacked and this was going to be, he was going to end up on like Al Jazeera, he was going to be one of those candidates. Right? We're going to get his movie soon, but so they start coming to him and he's like, but then and he just runs out of the mosque. We made fun of him later, he said how that was a terrible cowardly story, he could have really given him the pamphlets, but he survived, so that's good. But the cool thing there is that we got to sit down with the imam and really clear up a lot of his misconceptions about what he learned about Christianity when he was in college and he was in high school. Yeah.
Did he end up changing Christianity?
He didn't. What was great though is like, we were surprised, A, that he even agreed to sit with us. B, that he like allowed us to ask him questions, and the questions we'd ask him were like about his personal life, his faith. Like, did you ever really consider this? He'd be like, no, I never really thought about it, you know? And we'd like give him stories about, or analogies, because he had kids, about like the love of God in Christianity versus what it is in Islam. And simple misconceptions like that he had about, like what all Muslims kind of sometimes believe, about the Bible's accuracy or about the Trinity or things like that. And he had a chance to interact with him for literally 2 hours. We sat there in the middle of, this was in Friday of Ramadan, by the way, which is a relatively busy season, I think, I would say, in mosques. So there were tons of people around us, and they're looking, and they're hearing the conversation, it's like Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity and stuff, so they didn't really like the conversation, but we're still having it square in the middle of the mosque. I would love to be able to say at the end, you know, he said, I'm going to be, you know, Father Jose now. But he didn't. But for us, we felt we were faithful in bringing him the message and at least trying to work through some of that with him. But I'll tell you, there was, like in a different Muslim story, when we were in one of those neighborhoods that are all Arabic, and there were some pseudo-dangerous situations, but one lady who was fully veiled, because we broke up into two teams, a girl team and a guy team. The girl team spoke to a veiled lady who, as I was walking by her and she was with the girl team, she grabbed me and she was like, hey, Inta Ma'am? I'm like, yeah. No. No, she was like, ممكن تكلمني عن يسوع? I was like, she's like, can you speak to me about Jesus? I was like, yeah, sure. But, yeah, right? So this lady who you would have never imagined, a veiled woman, who was in the middle of like the heart of Saudi Arabia, Brooklyn, you know, that's the technical term in New York, she would ever, but she was, right? So there were a lot of that kind of thing. That's like my favorite thing to talk about, actually. Like besides the content here, I love seeing how the Bible stories kind of came to life for us in the evangelism world. Because you can think about whatever demographic you think, oh, those guys would never, and that was actually a personal challenge that our team took. Like we'd go to a city, like in London, when we were there, we would share with them what God did in America. You'd be like, yeah, that's cute, but you know who would never want to hear about God? Rich white people. Like, that's a good point. Maybe, you know, these guys, so we would go to like the Wall Street of London, and rich white people would also want to hear about God, really, to their surprise. And you would actually, I remember this one guy, Simon, that we met, who said, it's weird talking to you guys, because I feel like he was like clearly like a rich executive guy who we met in his lunch hour. Said, I've been thinking about this stuff, and I feel like God has just had you come here to just like connect the dots for me. For us, that wasn't like because he was just a regular dude, and there's like a mind-blowing story, but it's the fact of like, you don't know, or actually, let me put it this way, we know 100% that people across every demographic can hear about God, if we approach them in a way that's just not weird and annoying and because the message of God's limitless forgiveness is incredible. Cool? So that was supposed to be just the first principle. So we won't go through all of it, just for the sake of time. But I'll tell you this. Because of that first principle, the second one that I wanted to share with you, because sometimes what can hinder us in our walk is not realizing that forgiveness for ourselves. That's one problem. A second problem is not maybe sharing it with others. That's another problem. A third can be, like Jesus says, as plain as day. He says, look, because my forgiveness to you is like this, if you don't forgive each other, what? What's the consequence?
You're not going to be forgiven?
You will not be forgiven. It is just plain. St. Augustine, when he comments on it, he says, this is a bargain. He calls it a bargain to be reckoned with. I agree. I don't know what you guys think. But I think, for some reason, we can think when we wrong each other, and you will wrong each other, we never think about this idea. What is the number one reason you should be forgiving somebody else? Because
They're sorry.
that's a good thing you say, actually. That's actually the perfect. So she said because they're sorry. The number one reason, the only relevant reason we forgive is because we are forgiven. That's what makes you forgive someone when they're not sorry. That's what makes you forgive someone when they're just not sorry. They are like malicious. Like they're trying to hurt you. They're trying to do you wrong. Because the only way we can forgive is when we look at the forgiveness of God, like God forgiving us 1 million tickets, and then in light of that, whatever someone did to me, hey, that's nothing. And I can't, here's the key thing, if you don't remember anything else from this point, we can't afford not to forgive people around us. In the church, just in our relationships, like when we get catty with each other, when we just, hey man, you took this, was dumb things that we have. I know people that haven't spoken in for years. And for me, I'm trying to be a Christian. But I just always wonder, how can you afford that? I can't afford that. I have too many sins. I have too many things that I've done wrong that I need that forgiveness. I'm not going to block that channel of God's forgiveness under any circumstances. Does that distinction make sense? Because we always go by that. We always go by the fact that if someone's sorry, well, let's see how sorry they are. Do you really mean it? Should I forgive or forget? Right? It's that whole... Our distinction with the forgiving thing should be that I'm going to forgive you for one reason. Not because of what you're doing, not because of how you feel, not because of what you said to me, not because of what your mama said.
Your mom?
Who's ever mama?
I got nothing on me, don't worry.
That's right, she doesn't. It's because God forgave me. And God is forgiving me, so I'm going to forgive you. Does that make sense? I won't dwell on that so much, but that's something, please remember that. Please remember that we can't afford not to forgive. Lastly, I want to tell you, because there's a funny story involved, because I know we're a little bit late on time. It's okay, we're good? When Jesus says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. St. Cyril explains this passage, or these two petitions, by him saying, we're asking God, not like, don't lead us into temptation, like as if God is the one who tempts us. God is never tempted us. Ever, ever, ever. The devil is the tempter. Only the devil tempts us. We're asking God, God, please deliver us from the devil. Take us away from temptation. Yes?
Yeah, but doesn't God allow the devil to tempt us?
He does. Cool, that was just a good question on the way out.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yes?
Not only gives us what we can handle.
Very good. That's actually a verse. St. Paul says, God will never allow you to be tempted beyond what you can handle. And with every temptation will provide the way of escape. So there's that. And God is the one, of course, ultimately in control, who allows the devil to tempt you. But it's a big distinction of knowing the fact that the devil is the one who tempts us, and God's desire is for us to be away from the devil, to be away from temptation. Yes?
Can I ask why, God lets the devil tempt us?
Yes.
Some people, sometimes they feel like, I know this is one of these things, sometimes they feel like he's, setting us up for failure.
Yes.
So, why does he,
Let me tell you why. I actually had a passion for this question, and I researched it for months at a time a couple years ago. And here's the summary of it. My favorite explanation was from St. John Chrysostom. St. John Chrysostom says, the devil is supposed to exist in the world right now as one function. He has one role in our lives. He is our punching bag. He's supposed to be your trainer. Like God allows him to be there. And again, like we're saying, when we believe this, when we have faith in the fact that God will never allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able. But it's the reason why, again, like why do you go to the gym? Why do you have weights? Why do you have a punching bag? Why do you have something that's resistance? Because weights and stuff, they can seem like they're bad for your muscle. Actually tear, but that's how your muscle grows. Your faith muscle, your Christian faith